This is my kidnap hostage diary for the day entry. What I've been working on for many years, and this dealt with this Machiavellian Prince project, was interpretation of various strategies on multiple levels. What I've basically been doing is dissecting intent and just making note of different strategies pertaining to different characters perceived as characters in order to hopefully eventually compile all this data into a book. But we all know that I've got to play tackle football to try to even get anything done in my life. I'm extremely I am stalked to try to achieve anything in order to in order to manipulate me into the state of control, saddled, if you will. Under the slave dog mentality. So what I've been doing is trying to figure out motive. It's a lot of motive or strategy pertaining to my life based upon several interpretations of the possible theoretical existence. I'm not allowed to have theories, I am told by my handlers. That's theories. See, I think what they're trying to do is trying to not only give me the empathy for a slave dog, but dogs can't think about strategy, so therefore I'm not allowed to be well, it's like I'm not allowed to be a writer, I'm not allowed to be an artist, all I can be is a slave, basically. And then I get that hammered in. It's like the Golden Spike Railroad of factions of mafia meeting, but it's a mind. King Solomon's Dome is my estimation, and I think it routes through Indiana. And it's like the 49ers. What they're doing is Louisiana is the fifth. They're counting Louisiana. They're chopping off Louisiana and then turning it into a 49er gold mine, in my theoretical estimation. I just happen to be the access point or the enabler, theoretically speaking. Like I said, theories. That's what I've been doing for years. It's intelligence interpretation based upon strategy. But I'm not allowed to. I'm literally threatened. My life is literally threatened. I get beat into the head, forcibly drugged, I am fed like communion pills that I object to taking, and I have no option because I can't escape. I have no options at all. I have no options at all, and it's taken, and the strategy building up to that, I had to backtrack upon my life and motive and all that sort of thing. So now I'm going to get into different motives, and it takes some background, and to understand what perpetrated this, it takes some understanding as to motive and to um, method. So the motive, in my estimation, is usurping birthright. I honestly think it has to do with the trading places, Freaky Friday, swap. What swap? They're swingers, The masters, they're swingers, playboys, so they're swapping roles. So I get inflicted upon the harshness, and I pay the price but my birthright is used by the others, and and I'm stuck. They don't want to give it up. They don't want to. They definitely don't want to give up my birthright because obviously there's a whole lot more depth there, and so they want to try to distribute. And they're trying to call it a mine. And I say birthright, but it's like I said. I think I am the capital principal to a bank. I think I'm a levy bank supposed to control assets that's being robbed on my watch. And so I'm hesitating. And part of the reason I'm gagged, is because I'm a hostage. They want me to shut up, but they don't want me to sound the alarms and say, because I honestly think there's a diversion of the bank or the river assets into another uh, bank, and they're leaving mine high and dry, and they're desecrating my image and depleting my reputation by not being able to do anything. That's one of the reasons, motive theoretically, for my hog-tied hostage. If all this is true, and like I said, if not, it's really compelling fiction or strategy. just like Sun Tzu's Art of War or Machiavelli and the Prince, just like I'd written a letter 10 years ago about a book I was writing pertaining to this, as to what's the motive. And I still think it goes back to the Joker pillaging the Prince's Trust from Batman, that sort of thing. And that's a metaphorical statement. Or the Kramer versus Kramer mad money snatch and grab heist. And I just happen to be, well, eldest heir birthright is being usurped and distributed by discrediting me, but I am unable to protect myself. I'm just like laying here in an open field. I'm hogtied, and they just come up and stab and spear me all they want. It's like a matador, death in the afternoon, Dita Von Teese, scalded, basically. But it goes back to, I honestly think San Angelo was an abortion altar. I honestly do. I think, and the perpetration of it, it seems that way, was based upon by other factions, and I had to who benefits from it. The coalition I see that benefits from this. There's definitely a connection between Georgia and Texas. They're going to be the two ends, and they're going to try to control the Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and I think Arkansas. And Tennessee's still up in the air playing sides. But it's small. It would be like Highland Park trying to control all of Dallas. And I think they're going to try to use debt as the method for it, to be honest with you. Or just slight illusion, wizard illusion. But that's what it would basically be like Turtle Creek or Highland Park trying to control the entire Dallas area. So you've got, and I think the faction has to do, well, the Baptist church is based in Augusta. And my mother's side of the family is Baptist, even though my mother's never been to a Baptist church. But they're trying to empower her brother's side of the family at my expense. And her brother's son's family had a heavy ties to Baton Rouge. So Baton Rouge definitely screwed me. I admit I was a bit of a wild child partier, but then again, when I was there, the drinking age was hell, and it was a totally different world as far as the totally different thing. But it sort of changed, and I'm not allowed to change. They're making me it's like, that's why I'm forcibly handicapped, is so I can't, that's why I'm hogtied. They're forcing me in order to gain an advantage. And, so that's that's part of the strategy. But obviously, San Angelo was set up. When I moved out there, well, see, it's all these code hacks that are honored by, I am forced to play in the system in order to usurp my genetic propensity. So rather than honoring the genetics of it, I was like, they bet my life, Groucho sort of mentality. So I was held back in the 10th grade. I played junior varsity golf. I'm in junior varsity. I was sent to the Student Adjustment Center because I got caught with some empty beer cans at a battle of the bands on school property on one Friday evening. So I was sent there. That happens to be on 9th Street, which is the day of my birthday. It's all these stupid code hacks, but they're honored because of the entirety of code logic at things like TI, Texas Instruments, or the refineries. I think definitely Exxon and Valero seem to have a heavy role into this, it seems. Exxon, there's a definite tie into my mother, going way back with Exxon, and she seems to have sold me to Exxon, and into slavery. It seems that's the whole Juan Valdez, tiger in your tank. There's too much coincidence. The Exxon Valdez spilling all over Prince William Sound. Juan Valdez, and the whole, that's another one of those strange coincidences out there. DDB, that's the Mad Men sort of thing that did that. But who knows? Like I said, coincidence or not, interesting, who knows? How people are, well, see, that's the funny part is if I had the proper channels to if I had the resources to reach a target market, I could make money off this interesting sort of, and it's not conspiracy, it's just coincidences. Mine, there's synchronicity to it. There's a lot of coincidences to it. So, San Angelo, I think, was an abortion altar and sort of thing. So I get relegated to the dog status while they decide to, in order to validate themselves, they try to empower my sister, and so they're going to use her as her and my mother as a divisive force of the family itself. The whole it's kind of like fracking. They want to split the family into a bunch of scenes, and um, that way all the meat in the middle. It's like Avatar. They want to knock down the tree in order to get to all the cheddar. And I happen to think we're tied into that tree somehow. I think it has to do with Louisiana, especially, or the Marianas Trench or something like that. I think, like I said, I think we're just capital principles to a degree, but we're used as like radioactive material for everything. We want some radioactive popcorn. We want radioactive Botox. We want radioactive plastic surgery. We want some radioactive pharmaceuticals, radioactive martinis, so they can just a radioactive fuel. They want some rocket fuel for their roadsters, that sort of thing. So it's just the superpower math that's involved, the equations. So it definitely, I think, ties into Augusta and the Baptist, and I got Baptist on one side and then Catholic Jewish on the other. So I'm forced to, I am literally lynched by the Baptist, and I'm forced I am forced to be reverent to the Baptist side. Well, I have nothing, the Catholic and the Jewish side, I don't know, I don't know. So I'm stuck over here, and I get none of over here, and it was a deliberate path that I was put upon, in my estimation. So then you've got the whole other thing. You've got the Greek system set up, the hacking at LSU. I mean, there's all sorts of hacks that basically just bury me down deep. But the strategy of it is, and like I said, there was alienation that started after I finished, after I first got diagnosed with ADHD. I was living in a house, couldn't find a job. It was a nice house that I was doing a lot of good work in, but I couldn't find a job at all to save me any, just terrible job after terrible job after terrible job. Ended up starting dating this girl. So then I finally get kicked out of this house, and right when I'm getting kicked out, I get a great job. It was like they wanted to get me out of the nice house because they didn't want me. Well, and I was lost to a degree. I was doing some heavy-duty work as far as writing. So then I get this other job managing a restaurant, which is like 120 hours a week. And I'm forced to move into this other apartment where there's plenty of money to pay everything off if I would have kept the job, gotten the job before. But it's always been that way. I can't. There's no way I could have gotten the job. I had to lose the house, then I get the job. So then it was working my ass off, and I did a really good job at it. Learned a lot. Really good job. And just was completely burned out. Literally working over 100 hours a week for months in advance, the only manager there. And ended up, I would get like one day off a week occasionally, and I just couldn't handle it. I was driving, it was just too much. And so I ended up moving with a girl to Colorado, and I thought I was going to move up there for good. So I took all of my belongings because I didn't have that house anymore and ended up losing a lot of possessions. Well, we moved back. I ended up not finding a job up there. I spent time, we wrote a restaurant book, and then I started a novel, and I was really into it. You know, I thought we were friends and that sort of thing, and then ended up losing. It was my mistake, you know, but she ended up with, there was this picture of this aura that I remember. We got at some fair where it was like drawing all energy from me into her or something like that. It was really strange. And so basically, I ended up just leaving some. I thought I was going to get all my stuff back like in another few months. I didn't know where I mean, I thought I was either going to end up sleeping in my car or whatever because I didn't know where I was going coming back to Baton Rouge because I basically spent all my money. And so then I ended up finding a place, and then I had left a lot of my stuff in Colorado where she was staying, so ended up losing a lot of what I didn't think a big deal about it, but it ended up seemingly a bunch of valuable possessions that I still can't afford to get back because I do owe her some money for rent. But you know, it's one of those things that, and that was the sort of downturn. And I did get one job after that was decent, and so I made some mistakes, but I never thought it would deteriorate to that degree, that rapidly. And that was sort of the downward spiral into where I was living on friends' couches, unable to pay rent because I'd get it was just crappy job after no job, and then nothing, and then, it was just deterioration after deterioration and just falling apart, basically. And there was no real cause other than the possessions could have caused it to a degree. But I mean, I was relatively good compared to a lot of the people around me. I knew a lot of people that were 10 times wilder than I was. Always the voice of reason. I wasn't I would go to different types of events, but I was always there as just a mild, casual observer rather than falling. I wasn't like the Hunter Thompson. I enjoyed his writing, but I was nothing like him. Like I said, I was the casual, very uh, fringe observer to anything, and never got heavily. I had a lot of friends that got heavily involved in a lot of things that are doing 100 times better than I ever did. To be honest with you, that I mean, honestly, I mean, there were a, a lot more into. So that made me. There had to be reason to it. I thought I was getting into my artistic suffering phase. I was paying my artistic dues, but then after a while, it just got on and on. I was living out in these friends' couch basically as a bum because I couldn't get jobs in Baton Rouge. I didn't have any money to go anywhere. I went to Dallas I went to I went to Dallas for a while. I ended up getting a job there, luckily. My mother helped me move into an apartment. I worked at this place in the Gay Area district of Dallas, managing a 24-hour restaurant. I was working a lot of hours, but it was a great job as far as I was working with a bunch of real artistic kids. Had a lot of friends, did a lot, hung out with a lot of different, girls, and I didn't really date them, but we had a lot of friends, and we hung out a lot together. I went out, had a good time until I tried to get him to open up another location, franchise a few more locations where I'd be a part owner, and then right after that, I ended up getting fired, and never could find another job. That was I also did a severe bout of hunger where I completely ran out of money. I was, and this was the first time that I was starving to death the first time in Dallas. I ran out of money. I used to drive around, and just look for jobs and my car ended up running out of gas on the side of the road. I had to walk like 5 miles back. I was eating like every 3 or 4 days. And then finally my mother came or I got my father to, I think my father told me I could move in with him. So my mother had given me a bunch of furniture. So she ended up giving me like $100 and got my car had ended up getting towed because it ran out of gas on the side of, right by Neiman Marcus, the original Neiman Marcus. My car had run out of gas on the side of the road. and some windows had gotten bashed in, and it got towed to the impound lot. So I called my dad, and he said I could move in with him. And so my mother finally came and gave me the money to get my car out of impound, and then got all our furniture and moved it into a storage unit. And I ended up moving back to Baton Rouge, stayed with my dad for a while, got a job at a restaurant at a Greek and Lebanese restaurant as a grill cook. That last, it was terrible. And I ended up staying on his couch for a while, and just then ended up moving back in on the couch of those guys' apartments. Then I got the job in Glacier. Then 9/11 happened. Well, the problem is poverty alienated everyone in my life. Poverty has been the number one factor in my life. Has been crappy jobs and poverty, without a doubt. Because I honestly didn't drink. I had been college years ago when I first got to LSU, and in high school I was probably an alcoholic. Um, Never gotten in trouble for any of that, other than, and that was the funny part. I never went to a guidance counselor. Never got caught in trouble. It's really strange, but it seems like the lynch mob punished me to a degree. Tried to, I don't know. It's real, but I definitely paid like exponentially, 10, 20 times worse. I'm still paying for high school as far as I can tell. I'm still being put. I don't think I still honestly don't think I'll ever be able to mature. It doesn't seem that the people around me are content me, and never maturing beyond anything. But for the most part, like I said, I never really got into anything. I was surrounded by some really serious things, but I was always, never get involved with any of it. Um, I really, didn't get involved hardly with anything. I was an observer for the most part, on the fringe, just kind of hanging out, just seeing what's going on. I wrote a bunch of stories and characterizations, and a lot of my writing that I have been editing recently, scratching out, was really dark. I admit it. I was trying to do some dark sort of. There's like the Marilyn Manson sort of mentality. But what I think is happening now is they decided to lynch me because I have all of this credibility. See, that's another thing. The kids of today, and then my generation and the people in between, nobody ever, there was nobody out there. I got alienated, so there was no help or any sort of, like in the Beat generation, there was a group of them that, they were together as a group. Me, it's just me by myself. And other factors in 20th century Paris and the lost generation pre-World War II, there was a big group of artists which I've studied. They all, Fitzgerald, Picasso, Hemingway, Dali, Gertrude Stein, James Joyce, Beckett, all these people, and but see, I've never had a contemporary. I'm living next to an art school for a year and a half, and I've had, honestly, not one decent art conversation the entire time. I'm sure I don't know. My artistic credibility with the right packaging could be right up there with Kerouac or Warhol, honestly, relatively easy, but I don't have the resources to put that together. I've been almost famous for a long time, but instead I get dragged down to be the rat fed to the snake at the high schooler party while the rock star's tripping on acid, that sort of thing. And I never did a lot of hardcore drugs or anything like that. They were all around me, but I was always the voice of reason. I always told my friends, "You be careful." I was always the Meemaw of the bunch, telling everybody, "Y'all don't do that. Don't get too fucked up." I was the voice of reason the entire time. Nobody listened, but hey, I'd go to a rave and end up getting drunk, smoking grass, or taking, a Dexedrine or something like that. And, maybe eating a mushroom. You know, I knew people that were taking 5 and 10 and 15 hits of ecstasy with 5 hits of acid. I mean, I that was not or maybe not, maybe 5 or 10 hits of X and a few hits of acid. Seriously, it was really out of control. And I was writing about it, and I saw a lot of what was going on, but I was never involved to. My mind was never. I was always worried about messing up my mind, because once I got it in tune with the dexedrine, I kind of woke up. That's kind of why it was horrible when I was force-fed these psychotropes that really screwed my mind up worse, that I was really upset that I was being fed like communion, these psychotropes that I did not want to take, that were really screwing me up worse than anything. And the only problem is it's like I said, I remember watching Alex and Emma in San Angelo, where I dated a girl named Dawn Hudson as one of my first girlfriends, and a coincidence, a lady named Dawn Hudson is head of the Academy Awards now, the Oscar committee, and I went to see Alex and Emma, Luke Wilson and Kate Hudson in San Angelo in that timeout period, that summer school timeout, where basically all I did was sit in a room by myself. I studied and I did a lot of drawing, and I did, I didn't really edit or do a lot of write. I read and I didn't edit. Um, Never had any friends. I really could use a writing assistant to help organize some of this, because I am literally sitting here. I've got 7 pages hanging on the wall full of notes right over there. I've got page here, front and back. Got notebook. I've got a notebook filled with notes for a novel. Here's another page of 2 pages of notes. 7 pages over there. I've got a table full of 15 notebooks full of notes, full of all sorts of things. But my ADHD, and can't explain it. And this is one of those things, I think they're trying to cure this naturally. It's kind of like those crazy parents that don't want to use doctors. Well, they don't want to, for some reason, they're determined not to use Adderall, which works perfectly fine. I mean, it really does work good. I don't want to be on it full time. I like going on it like 3 or 4 months, getting some work done, and then taking a few months off, but I could, when I was on it before, I wrote a 300-page novel, which I still have. I think somewhere in my files. I can't sell it or do anything with it, but I got a 300-page book done. It was okay. It was kind of an entourage sort of book on Warholian fame, that sort of mentality. But I mean, it was, the place I was working, I put that place together. I mean, the best it had been. I'd been there 6 months already, so I get on my regimen of Adderall, and I mean, front to back, everything was tip-top shape. I had everything done. I mean, it was regimented, done well. It worked perfectly. It's like I said, it turned me into a mechanized, sort of a normal focused human. Whereas I'm normally like this, and when I'm force-fed, I'm way out here, skewed longhorn brain style, the hammer in the head. And, it's that Harrison Bergeron, where he was forced to wear if he was smarter or better looking, he had to wear a mask if he was better looking. If he could jump higher, he had to carry around weights. He had to wear glasses that made his vision worse. He had to wear a helmet to where every so often it shocked him, so he wouldn't think. So it would skew his mind, so he would be equal, handicapped. They're trying to, I think, make me JV, because I might have a varsity mind, so they want to make me JV, because they're zealots in that way. They're crazy. We're talking about some extreme, but the real motive is control of assets, conservator control of assets, as far as different well systems. And it's gotten to be really way out of control.